want to start? Yeah, please. Mikey, Moshe, have a good angle there? You have a good angle there?
We're starting.
Okay. All right. Hi, how are you? Start in about 2 minutes. Mike, let's go. What time is it coming?
Yeah, we're trying.
Go.
Get you ready here.
We have everything set up?
No, I have not set them up yet. I'm going to put it so you're at the front. You're in the front, not from here. But it's too much. It's too much. Just put it in the angle.
You ready?
No.
You ready to make it up?
Wait 1 second. People coming in.
Come on.
2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
What's the subject? How we say it? Yeah. Mastering your days. Actually, ready? Start ready?
It's ready. You're live.
You ready, Michael?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Lighthouse Project. My name is Michael, and just quickly wanted to go over, before we start the class, I'm very happy to see all you guys here tonight again. Wanted to go over quickly the sponsors for the night. The night in general is dedicated in memory of Yuval Eliyahu Raphael ben Nisim, Zichrono Lebracha. And the sponsors for tonight are as follows. From New York City, we have Mindy Weinberg in the merit of Shefa and Parnasa, and Geheref Ayin for Michal Mindel Bas Reizel. We have Mazel Shamayev in honor of Reuben ben Rachel and Mazel Bat Tova Tanya for a shidduch. We have the Refuah Shlema of Menachem Mendel ben Sarabasha and Dvorah Fega Bat Reizel. Anonymous in honor of the Refuah Shlema of Ruth Bat Tiferet. And from Miami, we have an anonymous in merit of Chava Bat Sarah for a shidduch, and Yonatan and Yona Mushev, who is here today, in honor of Yana's late father, Yechiel ben Rosa, Zichrono Lebracha, may his neshama have an aliyah.
Okay, guys, welcome to the class. Thank you guys for coming. The crowd's getting bigger and bigger. All right, today we're going to talk about mastering your days and stop worrying. You know, I get a very common phone call, usually people at 9 o'clock with panic attacks and already rummaging on what they're going through. And you have to understand something. Our mornings are very, very important. If we're not able to master our mornings, that's the beginning of the end. So, you know, willpower is given to you in the morning. A person has a certain amount of willpower in the morning. And by 9 o'clock, if you're on 10% battery, you can't live like that. So we're trying to create mindfulness, and we're trying to create a different strategy. Basically, Rab Nachman has amazing ideas on how to master your days. Because if you can't have a good day, you're not going to have a good month. If you're not going to have a good month, you're not going to have a good year. So it starts really by making every single day count. We're going to talk about breathing. We're going to talk about a lot of amazing things. So again, it's funny how the word reaction and creation have the same exact letters. I was looking at it. Reaction and creation have the same exact letters. So either a person's creating a day or he's reacting to the day. And that's really the difference between one person to the other. We want to be able to create. We want to be able to create opportunities, not react to things all day long. So a person either can react to it or he can create. And that's really depends on if a person over time continues to do that, really that's his destiny. So these are the little things that we're trying to really work on. Some of this book I got from this great book by Dale Carnegie on how to stop worrying and start living. And he has an amazing line in the beginning. And he says, listen, it's literally impossible to focus on things you can't control and create your day. You can't do both. You can't fight the fight and have a creation. So a person either has to decide, either I'm going to fight the fight or I'm going to create a good day. You just can't do both. A person cannot handle so much stress and also have this outcome. So that's one thing we want to work on. Nowadays, he says something which is very true. He says 75% of all illnesses, he says, could be cured if a person stopped worrying and having fear. You know, the first thing people call, I'm worried. Okay, what is that doing for you? If a person understood the adrenal insufficiency we're going to talk about, what happens when a person's worrying all day long, it's going to knock his willpower out. If you're knocked out by 9 o'clock, if you got 10% battery by 9 o'clock, what do you think is going to happen the rest of your day? Unfortunately, we make our worst decisions when we're tired. When we're tired, when we're out of energy, those are the times we make the worst decisions. So we got to get rid of the weeds before we plant the seeds. You can't plant a beautiful garden if you don't get out of the weeds. So a lot of my classes are based on getting a lot of the weeds out of your life. You know, everybody wants to plant the seeds. You know, you go to a lot of talks. Plant seeds, goals, etc., but they're not focusing on the weeds. Rav Nachman's teachings are all focusing on the weeds. Fix where are the weeds in your life? Because you can't really, the seeds will never actually go through if a person has the weeds killing his life. And that's a nice analogy to have. You know, a lot of people, you know, we're trying to do a lot of goals here. We're trying to do a 40-day challenge. We're trying to do, you know, sexual impurity classes, a lot of things, because I know for a fact that these are the blockages in our lives. And unless we remove some of these blockages in our lives, that's why you see a lot of people, they're not going further because they're stuck on the weeds in their life. So anytime we have, for example, you know, science tells you nowadays, in order to break a habit, you need 30 to 60 days. The Torah tells you 40 days. 40 days is really the number, the magic number, that if a person is able to break something for 40 days, it's like creating a new embryo. It's creating a new habit. So that's why we're so focused on the 40 days. So you have to realize, a lot of people are scared. What happens after the 40th day? They think like the world's going to come to an end and they're going to have a bigger evil inclination and they don't know what to do. So you have to, God did not create the world like that. The first 10 to 13 days of anything you're going to do is going to be unbearable. I remember in the beginning fixing my braid, the first 10 to 15 days, it's going to be unbearable, right? The second 10 to 15 days, it's going to be very inconvenient for you. But after you finish the second 15 days, then you're going to be unstoppable. So if we realize that if we're able just to get by those first and second trimester, after the third, that habit is actually, you're going to be unstoppable. You know, you see people that are exercising, they don't just stop exercising, they're addicted to it. What we want to do is we want to channel our addictions. So anytime you see an obstacle, you say, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. It's not true. The evil inclination comes at you in the beginning. So yes, you're going to have to be uncomfortable. Big deal. You're going to have to be a little uncomfortable sometimes, and you're going to have to be, it's going to be unbearable. But once you're able to break that resistance, that's where everything happens for the person. And that's where we really want to realize that, just think about it. It's a short-term goal. It's just a short-term goal. It's not going to be the end of the world. A lot of people are falling and because they realize, oh, I can't do it. I don't have what it takes. And it's really, that's your story. So again, 40 days, any challenge you want to do in 40 days, there's no way you can plant seeds in your life without removing weeds. I have yet to see it done. I've yet to see it happen. I've yet to see where a person has specific weeds in his life. I've yet to see that guy succeed unless he was able to break his habits. One of Rav Nachman's, the key to Rav Nachman's growing, was he was able to always reinvent himself. You know, it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan a couple of days ago, it was Rav Nachman's birthday. And the greatness about Rav Nachman is he was always able to reinvent himself, even in that day. That same day, Rav Nachman was able to reinvent himself. Same thing with us today. We have to constantly reinvent ourselves. And we have to be able to look at life brand new. The evil inclination is obviously going to show you, oh, you don't have what it takes. But that's not true. Okay? So remember, falling is necessary to go. It's going to be uncomfortable for you, anything that grows, because it's just like a birth. In order to achieve something, you have to go through the birth process. The birth process requires a lot of cries, it requires a lot of contractions, but at the end of the day, you're going to have the baby. You're going to have the baby. You're not going to cry all the time. You're going to eventually have the baby. So the key is really to be focused. So he's saying something very beautiful here. He's saying nowadays it's not what we eat that's eating us, that's giving us the ulcer. It's what's eating us is giving us the ulcer. So if we're not mindful of what we think about and everything, then that's where we get hit. There's a great serenity key that one thing that I keep on seeing with anxious people is anxious people always focus on things they can't control. They always focus on things they can't control. That's a lot of anxiety. For example, you go out to work. If the deal doesn't happen, what are you going to do about that? So anxious people really focus a lot of times on things they can't control. And that's what we have to realize. There's a great prayer in the Serenity Prayer that says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So we have to realize there's certain things that we can't control, and we're putting all our energy in that. And that's destroying our willpower, that's taking our breath away, and that's exhausting us. Okay? So the mornings are really the key. Once I started doing meditation in the morning, once I started doing his bodhidut and focused on gratitude, that really changed my life. Your habits, your good habits will equal greatness, but it's all about creating new habits. Okay, so that's one of the things we have to work on, is realizing that we have to create new habits, because we can't wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning already rummaging on the day. Because it's not the situation that's exhausting us, it's our thoughts over the situation. It's not the situation, because the situation could be the greatest thing for you. But it's our thoughts over the situation that's really exhausting us. And that's what's killing us and killing our willpower. That's why people don't have energy today. So those are the things we definitely want to tweak. One of the things that we realized, that he said a great line. He's saying that the biggest problem today with physicians is that they're curing the person's body without curing his mind. That's one of the biggest problems today. They're curing the body, but not the mind. The mind is the issue, it's not the body. You cure the body without the mind, where are you going to go? So let's talk about what nachman says. What is the key to wealth? What is the key for a person to have contemplation? He gives it to us. He's going to give you such a beautiful, practical example, and you're going to see the key to wealth. What is the key to wealth? We know science talks about the breath. There's every single day a new book on breathing, how breathing and the person getting healed, it's all connected. Nachman says something very beautiful. He's saying here that the key for a person to have shefa is abundance of light in less than 60. He's saying is the key to a person having contemplation is by a person able to extend his days. That means I can know your trust level if I can check your lungs. Depending on your breath, depending on the person's patience, depending on the person's, he's either able to extend his days or shorten his days. According to how we react to things, according to our stimulus, that's the difference between connecting to the keter, which is the key to wealth really, is if you have your days extended. How do we extend our days? We're going to talk about how do we extend the days. He's saying here, the key for a person is he must attempt to extend and increase his days, because every single day begins very narrow at first. There's a lot of constrictions. Some people don't even want to get out of bed in the morning. So every single day has tremendous amount of constrictions. Our job is to extend that day. The key for a person to have wealth, contemplation, the proper breath is all about extending the day. How do we do that? What do we do when we extend the day? We are connecting to an energy called keter. Keter is the biggest light the person can receive. That means every time a person all of a sudden says, you know what, I'm having a bad day at 2 o'clock, and at 3 o'clock all of a sudden he changes his mind and says, you know what, I'm going to give it a second shot. All of a sudden, what did he do? Instead of 2 o'clock being the end of his day, he just created a brand new day. He just created a brand new day. His day just recreated. He reinvented the day. It sounds so simple, but what happens when people, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, he gets an email, that's it, I'm finished. Day's over, I had the worst day of my life. When you do that, what are you doing? You're connecting to poverty. The key is to do the opposite, to actually extend your day. Now, how do we extend our day? By being able to be mindful of, it's not true, just because I had a bad deal at 2 o'clock doesn't mean my day's over. With this mentality, sometimes you have a bad deal at 2 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, all of a sudden the customer can change his mind. You just created the day. You just created the day. So if we're giving our energy away to people, that's how we're able to shorten our days. He talks about the breath and poverty very connected. if we realize that, think about three things in a person all of a sudden in his breath connected. He's saying a person having a short breath is an indication of poverty. Let's look at indication of what are weeds in our life. What are our kryptonites? One of them is what? One of them is, for example, a person eating. After a guy overeats, what does he say? I can't breathe. That's an indication of poverty. What happens when a guy has a heavy lunch and he's always stuffing himself to eat? His day's done. He goes to sleep. His day's over. 12 o'clock, the guy went to lunch at this place. Finished. The day's over. Call me tomorrow. His day is shortened. So eating can actually shorten our days. Right? Second thing that can shorten your days is what? Is, for example, when a guy sees a girl, he's always lusting after a woman. She took my breath away. You ever hear the term? She took my breath away. So what happens if she keeps on taking your breath away? You're going to end up in the ER. If she keeps on taking your breath away, what's going to happen to you? You're going to have no contemplation. Because we're going to talk about that a person's contemplation is based on his breathing and his intellect. So either you're going to give the breath away here or you're extending the breath. So when a person has relations with a person, with a spouse, it's very important to focus on the breath. The key to your child being healthy, the key to your spirituality of your child could be based on the breath. That means if a person has a long breath, he has contemplation, he's actually feeding that into his wife. If a person has a short breath, it's like a dog. And that can cause premature, God forbid, children to come out, unfortunately, the wrong way. God forbid. Because it's out of lust. The more you get into lust, the more your breath is shortened. When a guy sees him, can't breathe. The guy can't breathe. The guy can't breathe. He's stuck. So we want to be able to connect to the breath by being able to realize not to go into our impulses. The more we're connected to a person's connected to his impulses, his lust, his breath is shortened, and he has no contemplation. He can't think about it, and he's not making the right decisions. Welcome to the New York singles market, because people are making decisions based on lust, and that leads to poverty. The Gemara clearly says that fear of God extends your day. Lack of fear shortens your day. So either you're going into extension of the day, which means wealth, contemplation, or you're shortening your days. Understand? One way. Everything you do, you're either going one way or the other way. So the key is to be mindful. Reb Nachman's going to talk about in lesson 60, what's the cause of insanity? What's the cause of insanity? And you're going to hear this, and you're going to say, wow, it's that simple? Yes, it's that simple. And what's the third thing? Is when a guy gets angry, when he's stressed out, what happens? Can't breathe. So anger, when a person gets angry, he loses his mind, he loses his intellect, and he loses his soul. So if you're not mindful of your state, the person's always blowing his fuse. What do they tell the guy who's always angry? Just breathe. Correct? Stop. Take a breath. So now you heard the three examples how breathing is related to contemplation and how that's all connected. So a smart person is always careful to watch his breathing and to realize, wow, today my day's full because I was able to react differently to the stimulus. Another person's reacting to everything, his day gets shortened. Oh, this person at 1 o'clock, he ruined my day. You let yourself ruin that day. So if you have these days constantly, then that's where our life begins, and that's where God forbid, all sicknesses come. That's where adrenal insufficiency comes, where the kidneys have the adrenal glands on top of it, and all of a sudden when the adrenal glands keep on firing off, there's no more cortisol left because the guy's burnt out, and that's what causes exhaustion, mental weakness, etc., etc., etc. So and you want to go to a doctor to give you a prescription, and I don't know, really, it's not really going to help unless you stop what you're doing and be mindful of what's happening and what state you're in. That's really the key. The key is to make little victories. And to be mindful every single day. You know what? Today, thank God, I didn't react that way. Look how I'm breathing today. I have full of energy. Every top athlete will tell you the key is connecting to your breath. And the opposite, not connecting to your breath, is panic attacks. What happens when a person has a panic attack? Can't breathe. Why do you have a panic attack? It's because you can't breathe. So, lesson 60 talks about something very beautiful. Does that make sense to everybody? You're either extending your day, so think about whatever success you've had in your life, It's because you were breathing properly, you were making the right decisions. Wherever you didn't have success in life, is you went the opposite way. So that's why we need emunah. Good old-fashioned emunah never hurts you, I promise you. That determines your breath. Rav Nachman clearly said that you can tell a person's emunah by checking his lungs. Why? So where are our passions coming from? Think about it. Where are the passions coming from? Where are the emotions coming from? Gemara says clearly, the heart is in charge of all the emotions. The heart is the source of all the person's emotions. What's in between the heart and the mind? The lungs. The lungs represent spirituality. The lungs represent the 5 lobes of the Torah. So either we cool off our heart, then our brain has intellect, we're making the right decisions. But unfortunately, if we don't cool down the heart, what happens? The heart rises to the brain, and all of a sudden the guy goes nuts, in a practical sense. So what do? We have to start breathing. What are you breathing? You have to breathe spirituality. That's why the key is to breathe. You have to get into, the Hashem clearly told us that He created the Torah to fight against the evil inclination. Without the Torah, I don't know how a person makes it. When somebody tells me, I say, why don't you try some Torah classes? No, not for me. But when a person says that, it's like ignorance. This is the oldest book in history. And it's given to you by God. What else do you want? So every time a person hears a class, every time a person hears Torah, all of a sudden he's calmer. Why is he calmer? Because he just cooled down his heart. He's more calm, he's less anxious. How come all of a sudden you feel good every time you hear a class? Because your soul you're giving your soul oxygen. It's funny how the word neshama, right, which means a soul, and neshima is breath. So your neshama, your soul, and your breath are almost correlated. Almost correlated. There's nothing new under the sun, guys. So the more a person's able to breathe, meditation, for example, I know this. So I wake up every single day. I do an hour of his bodhidut. I do meditate, which it's gratitude meditation. Already, when I'm coming in the day, I'm already cooled off. Somebody can cut me off. Somebody can do this to me. I'm calm. But what happens is, if you go into work, somebody cuts you off. Next thing you know, you're screaming at the guy. You see the difference? So we want to play a lot of offense, not so much defense. A good offense is 9 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock, you're already doing meditation, you're already cooling off, so when you get to work, you're chilled out. A guy who comes into work at 10 o'clock with his coffee because he woke up late, he comes into work, any guy does anything to him, that's it, he's lost. 11 o'clock, he has no normal willpower, he's burnt out. That happens over time, you're not going to have that much success. So this is exactly what we have to realize, because at the end of the day, all of our wealth is all about the breath. Wealth is all about how you react to things. That's why before a person receives shefa, before a person receives abundance, what happens? He gets tested with anger. Because before money comes to a person, it comes from the same size as anger. So you have to go through the anger to get the money. You understand? You have to go through a test before getting money. It just doesn't come to you on a FedEx. Where's your wire? You're such a nice guy. Let me send you your wire information. You have to go through toil. Some of my biggest deals I've made in my life have been, I've had arguments over the stupidest things in the world. Over a tortilla one time. I almost lost the deal. Over a tortilla. You understand? So if a person's not mindful, look, why is my wife crazy? What is she talking about a tortilla for? It's not the tortilla. The tortilla is just a stick. There's a test behind that tortilla. When you know the Torah, here comes blessing. But if you're not able to read the signs, that tortilla is going to knock you out. You're going to get knocked out by a tortilla. So what are you going to ask people what they usually fight about with their wives? The stupidest things in the world. She didn't want to change the channel for me. I said, really? This is what you're giving your energy to? What does that say about you? And what does it say about the person, honestly? So that's the key. Rav Nachman says here that that's why our job is, we have to renew ourselves daily. We have to renew our intellect daily. You can't remain stagnant. You can't say, you know what, I listened to a class a year ago. It's nice. Give me another one. No, because the evil inclination is much bigger than you. And God clearly told you, if it wasn't, the only way a person could fight against the evil inclination is connecting to spirituality, connecting to the Torah. There's no other way. I love all these guys. I love Tony Robbins. I love all the great speakers. I follow them all the time. But I realize if I don't get rid of my weeds, all the motivation is wonderful. But I need to get rid of weeds. Yeah, motivate. Get a beautiful garden. But how about the weeds? In Judaism, we're taught, get rid of the weeds. Because you can have all the motivation in your life, but you have one weed screwing up the whole garden. There you go. There's your reality. So he clearly tells us here that the word breathing is the main factor in the proper functioning of the intellect. Rav Nachman wrote this around 250 years ago. 250 years ago, he's telling you here that breathing is the main factor for your intelligence. Not your IQ. Your breathing, your self-control. Person having self-control. If you tell me right now, what's the segula for Shalom Bayit today? I tell people two things. Self-confidence and self-control. If you have self-confidence and self-control, you have Shalom Bayit. If you don't have self-confidence and self-control, you have nothing. Because your wife will always remember that one anger time you got angry. And what's lack of self-confidence? Always having to answer back. If you know who you are, you don't need to answer back. Okay, it's okay. She's there to help me. But if a person's always insecure, what is he doing? He's always defending himself. So, the bigger the mouth, the smaller the head. That's the bottom line. The bigger the mouth, the smaller the head. Guy who's calm, doesn't have to respond. It's okay. It's okay. Because a woman always obviously changes her state. So he's saying here that your soul is like a lamp. I said that very quietly. Right, very quietly. He says here, your soul is like a lamp. I'm going to give you a very practical. Pretend your soul is a lamp. Right? What does the lamp need? Oil. If it has oil, the lamp is on. You have intellect. You have contemplation. If you have contemplation, you're making the right decisions. If the lamp is not getting any oil, why? Because the heart is burning the oil. Then what happens? There's no oil in the lamp. There's no oil. Where are we going to get the oil from? That's what happens. That's when people get insane, because the heart goes over the lungs and goes straight into the brain, and it causes madness. Addictions, aggressions, anger. Cool off. But again, this is all, if a person's able to have good rituals in the morning and start to have gratitude, have meditation. As first thing he does, he comes into the day already, the whole day, the morning is his key. You know why? Because we can only really control our mornings and we can control our nights. We can't really control what happens in the day. But you can master your mornings. Think about it. You could decide, I'm going to wake up at 7 o'clock and pray. I'm going to decide and meditate at 7 o'clock. You can decide that. At 3 o'clock, it's impossible. You never know what happens. A customer comes, you never know what happens. But you can definitely control what time you go to sleep and what time you wake up in the morning. If you're able to master the mornings and the nights, you got it. Can't control the afternoons. That's impossible. So figure out how to control the mornings and the afternoons by breathing a lot and starting the day on 70 degrees, not on 99.5. Because once you're on 99.5, especially if you're Moroccan, that's the one Moroccan joke for the day, you're going to give it to everybody. Every class has to have a Moroccan joke. So if you're on 99.5, you're done. And that's the key. And that's why he's saying here. But when there are no oils in the body, the intellect cannot be lit for contemplation. You could be the smartest guy in the world. Hey, look, IQ of 200. Doesn't make a difference. He has no oil. It's worthless. You can have the greatest car in the world, but no oil. What are you going to do with the car? You can't go anywhere. He's saying here, but when there are no oils in the body, the intellect cannot be lit for contemplation. This leads to people going insane. There's your segula for people going insane. Over time, enough anger, enough emotions, whether it's food, whether it's lust, that's what causes people to go crazy. So what do we have to do? We have to be able to fill our brains with contemplation by breathing. What are we breathing? Breathing Torah, breathing spirituality. And that gives us the ability to have longer days, because you're able to all of a sudden be mindful. I can't be mindful if my head's on fire all the time. Once I have contemplation, I have mindfulness. Once I have mindfulness, then I can control the day. And then that leads to wealth. You understand? I have to cool off before I have mindfulness. You can't just wake up and have mindfulness when something's eating me. No, be mindful. And the guy's pumping 120 miles per hour. What is he talking about mindfulness? First you have to put the oil in the brain, then he can be mindful. So that's why there's a lot of people that can't control their thoughts because they're not doing enough rituals to fight this. So this lesson is really one of my favorite lessons because it's very practical and yet you know what to do. You know exactly what to do. You know exactly what to do. He's saying here, another beautiful lesson he talks about here. See, unfortunately, you hear a lot of people, they're cows lately, ruminating. They're taking the same thought, putting on the floor. Taking the same thought, over and over, ruminating like a cow. That's all caused by lack of mindfulness. The person says, what am I thinking about this all the time? I can't control this. He's able to stop it, he's able to be mindful, and he's able to switch his mind. But as long as you're ruminating like a cow, where are you going to go with this? And that's where I see when people are able to change their habits is when they do something new, when they create new habits, when they create their new mornings. Something new changes about them, then their days change. Just by sitting there listening to Torah classes and not having any action, I've yet to see many people succeed. I know the difference why some people are having breakouts and some people are just staying at the same because they're not taking the advice. So why do I do the Tikkun HaKlali so much? Because what do you think the Tikkun HaKlali is doing? Calming down the heart and giving you contemplation. That's why I do it. That's why I tell people, let's focus on this. We need some oil. I can't tell you what to do if you have no oil in the brain. That's why I specifically attack that, and that's why Rabbi Nachman attacked that. Listen, there's other sectors of religion. Come to a Friday night dinner. Okay, wonderful. It's the same guy for 10 years eating Friday night dinners. It's the same guy. What happened to you? Same guy. No growth. What would you do in a business that doesn't grow? What would you do? Say, I got to sell this business. What do you do with a guy 10 years and he's okay not growing? What would you do with that? What would you do with that? The key to happiness is growing and giving. If you're not growing and giving, you'll never be happy. I've yet to see a person happy unless he's growing and giving. That's the magic formula. Growing and giving. You want to know why? Because your soul loves to grow and your soul loves to give. Two things you're in your soul state. Your ego wants to take. Your soul wants to give. So when a person is giving, that's when he's really going to have happiness in his life. So that's why we have to find out what our purpose is in life, and we have to do what we're best at. And once you're in that state, then you have purpose, you have meaning, and then when a person has meaning, he has no suffering. When a person doesn't have meaning, then he turns to aggression, addiction, and oppression, and all kinds of other things. Nachman says something very beautiful in lesson 76. It's funny, he wrote these lessons 250 years ago, and it's everything today. It's exactly what we're dealing with today. He clearly said in the other book the other day, we gave a class on it, that he says every single psychology, every single advice in the world are in these books. Everyone is in there. You just have to dig deep. I've been digging for 17 years, and I literally found, and I'm not a rabbi or nothing, but what I found, I literally found the advice for business, relationships, everything across the board. It's all in here. But one thing you have to do is you have to be all in. You have to be committed. You're going to be committed. You're going to see everything is in here. You don't have to go anywhere else. He's saying here, therefore a person needs to renew his mind, his intellect daily. He has to renew his intellect daily. What does renewing my intellect daily mean? Let's not just be picking up new information, not picking up new wisdom, not just that, but he's saying here, the intellect can never stagnate. When a person becomes stagnant in his life, when he becomes stagnant, that's when his intellect basically shuts down. And what does that cause him to do? He becomes heavy. You see people praying in synagogues, they look like they just got out of the funeral. No energy. They're coming in like this, like they already lost the war. Stay home. Reinvent yourself. Reb Nachman's main thing is to reinvent himself. What is he saying here? This is not talking only about knowledge. You know what he's talking about? He's talking about a person seeing every single day as a brand new day. Looking at every single day as a brand new day and a brand new opportunity. One of the meditations I say to myself every single day, today is a brand new day. There's a reason why the man came down in Shemayim. It came down every single day. It didn't come Costco 30-day supply. Because he wants the relationship with the person. He wants him to look up and refresh himself and see every single day as a brand new day. I've had calls in some days at 2 o'clock that have changed my life. Every day, if you're looking at every single day brand new, you're connecting to Keter, your day's extended. If you're looking at life, yesterday's the same thing as today, the retail business sucks, look, everything's closing, that's closing, that's closing. So you have no willpower, you have no energy, and you're knocked out. You're knocked out. So we can't have that mentality because we have to realize, where's the blessing coming from? It's coming from heaven, not from you. So what is he saying here? This entails not only looking at new knowledge, but renewing himself each day daily so he approaches the day fresh. What's the key? I have some employees that come to work fresh. Some of them, that you can see all the baggage, all the laundry that come with. And you can see the growth between one employee and another employee. And the only difference is that person sees life completely different. And so what does he do? He's able to come in fresh, new mind, and he has a different mentality. And that's what he's saying here. Look what he's saying, something very beautiful. He's saying, renewing the mind, meaning meriting a new intellect, so your intellect is constantly expanding. It gives you vision. If you see the difference between good leaders in this country, what's the one key? They're visionaries. They're visionaries. If a person's the visionary, he could see already the changes in the business. He already could see very far away. When a person has no vision, what happens? He can't see. He can't see past 10 yards. Good guy has vision. How do you get vision? How do you become a visionary? By having trust in God. A person has trust in God. He has vision. He doesn't get knocked out by a phone call. He has vision. He's able to see the field clearly. And that's what he's saying here. The same applies to the service of God. If a person has vision, if somebody with a strong vision, he can see very, very far away. But someone with a very short vision, you tell the guy, you know what, you should talk to God for 10 minutes. I can't. He can't see past 5 yards. Everything becomes very heavy for him. So your emunah gives you the vision, and you become a visionary. Now, we all know, whether in business, religion, you need to become a visionary. Your vision is based on the amount of trust you have in God. That gives you the ability to see things very, very clearly. A person with no vision, he's saying, this doesn't work, I tried this already. That doesn't work, I can't do this. He starts making 100 excuses because you don't have a vision. You don't have a vision. We already spoke about that the first 10 days of anything, it's going to be unbearable. The second 10 days is going to be, you're going to be exhausted. It's going to be very uncomfortable for you. But after that, it's going to be an addiction. I never forget. It took me 6 months to start doing his bodhidut. I couldn't take it. The first 6 months, I got no results. Zero results. But I said, Nachman spoke about this 150 times. There has to be something to this. So I'm very determined. So I waited the 6 months, and all of a sudden, the big fish flipped over in one day. And every day I was looking at life like, you know what? I just need one more prayer to knock the thing over. And that's how I approached it. It's just tomorrow's going to be the day. Tomorrow, the next day is going to be the day. And that's what you have to realize. Sometimes your person can quit, and he could be at the 1 yard line, and he can quit, and everything's there for him. But he quit at the 1 yard line. Because that's when the evil inclination hits you hardest, when you're about to win. And that's where the test is. So that's where Nachman spoke about this. He says the same applies to the service of God. One who has a clear mind, he's able to study, he's able to pray, he's able to meditate without any kind of concentration. You don't have to motivate the guy. But someone without that, it's very heavy for him. Because you know what? He doesn't really believe it. It's like a guy going into work and he really doesn't believe in his business. How is he going to come in? He's going to go to work all tired. He doesn't believe it. He has no energy, he has no renewal. And that's what's causing the shortening of the day instead of expanding of the day. How do we know this? Where do we know this from? Another problem that we have is once we get into stagnation, then we're subject to dinim. What are dinim? Judgments from God. Whenever we become stagnant in something, that opens up for judgment. Because you become stagnant. So we don't want to be stagnant. When a person becomes stagnant in any kind of faith, stagnant in anything, it's showing that his soul is not alive. He's not feeding his soul, so he becomes stagnant. Stagnant is not a good sign. Same thing as business, same thing as a stock. You have a stock, what's it doing? Stock's not moving. What do? You sell it. You move into a better stock. Same thing with us. We cannot be stagnant. With our exercise, with anything in our life, there's no room for stagnation. Because that means comfort. When a person is comfortable, that's why 80% of the Jews didn't leave Egypt. Because he said, listen, we'd rather be slaves to our desires than leave. Imagine what kind of mentality. Why would somebody want to be a slave? Because slavery is comfort. Why would somebody, does it make any sense? Why would somebody want to be a slave to life? Yet 80% of the Jews got stuck in Egypt because they'd rather be slaves. And think about it. Anytime we're in a pattern of habit and we don't break patterns, we're slaves to that desire. So I tell people, it's not like you think you're living, yeah, you're going out with 10 girls, 15 girls, but you can't stop. You're a slave. Do you understand? Well, anytime you can't stop doing something, you're a slave. End of story. You think you're living, but you can't stop. Once you stop, then you're out of slavery. But until you can't stop, you're a slave. Okay, you're having a lot of fun, but you're a slave. You're having a lot of fun in slavery. And that's why if a person realizes, I can't stop doing something, I got a problem. I got a problem, because that means I'm in slavery. And slavery, at the end of the day, it's going to catch up to you. That's why we talk so much about self-control nowadays. It says in lesson 86 in the second half, he's saying here that the Jews, one of the Jews' problem in Egypt is that the Jews had a very, 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 in a time of religious oppression, when a person doesn't believe in God, and he doesn't have the emunah, and he doesn't have the renewal, even tying your shoes is going to be very difficult for you. Even tying your shoes. In a time of religious oppression, Gemara in Sanhedrin says, even tying your shoes, I got to go tie my shoes. I got to go pray. Because you're looking at it as an obligation, not as an opportunity. Anytime you put a low effort in anything in your life, you're looking at it as an obligation and not as an opportunity. Why do you think God gave you a problem? So you can pray. You can talk to God and say, God, what's the meaning of this problem? I have a very good coping method in my life. Any problem that I have a relationship with God, 6, 5, 4, 3 o'clock in the morning, that's when we discuss the problem. We don't give energy to problems. Because problems need energy to live. You realize that. Problems need energy to live. So if you're giving your energy away to problems, then you're going to get stuck in them. So if a person has his bodhidut, he has a relationship with God, okay, this happened to me, it means I have to talk to God at this hour. If you're trying to convince, a person's trying to convince his spouse to change, he has a much better chance of praying for it than attacking the problem. Anytime you tell your spouse, you should do this better. Has that ever worked? Has that ever worked, ever? Never worked for me. I tried it 400 times. Never worked. 0. 0 for 400. It's an attack. When you pray for something, all of a sudden, wow, how did this person change? All of a sudden we got this idea. It's because it all happens in prayer. Everything happens in prayer. But what do? We do the opposite. We have to focus on prayer. That is your life. David HaMelech says, prayer is my life. Doesn't mean you have to be Hasidic. Doesn't mean you could be a regular person. But a smart person knows, listen, how much energy am I going to convince this person to change? I have no shot. I know the rules. I'll spend my time praying for it. Because every time you pray for something, it's showing you what? Humility. Correct? What's the biggest problem that people are having today? What Nachman says in lesson 82, why is a person's life going out of order? It's because he's not humble. One of the reasons if a person says, my life is upside down, this is not going for me, that's not going for me, that's not going for me, it's an indication of arrogance. It's an indication of arrogance. What is arrogance? It could be, wow, I prayed for it yesterday, how come it didn't go through? Well, you think it's a lottery ticket? It takes time. It has to require patience, relationship. It just doesn't happen in one shot. But people pray, they want it yesterday, and they get upset, it didn't work. So what does that say about the person? It's like starting a new business. The business didn't make money in the first year. Yes, new businesses sometimes lose money in the first year. It's a goal. You're going to a greater end. But if you're just focusing on why didn't I make money yesterday, then eventually that catches up to you. And that knocks your emunah. He's saying here, what was the problem with the Jews in Egypt? He's saying they had no ruach. They didn't listen to Moshe, right? They had a shortness of breath, so their work was hard. They didn't listen to Moshe, they didn't listen to the Torah. They had a shortness of breath, and their life was hard. You see the connection between shortness of breath, between working hard? So if you really believed in it, you don't have to convince me to wake up at 5 o'clock to go meditate and speak for an hour. You don't have to, I don't need willpower. You don't have to call me. Another guy, speak for 5 minutes, you got to call the guy. Wake up. What's the difference between one? One guy believes and he knows it works. Another guy doesn't believe it. So you have to call him, and every time you have to remind him. But if you know, if you're in your soul state, you know this is what you need. If you're not in your soul state, that's what happens. So what is the shortness of ruach? What is the shortness of ruach? Little faith, lack of faith. Person doesn't have faith, that causes his ruach to be shortened. Then his days are shortened. Your days are shortened. Gemara says anxiety and fear shorten your life. Maybe it'll take 10 years off your life if your person's constantly worried. It'll take 10 years off your life easily. Studies are showing the effects of it. Adrenal fatigue leads to aging, leads to a person not having testosterone, no energy for anything, and that becomes our life. And so that's what we have. We have the Torah telling us exactly what we need to do. We need to extend our breath. We need to contemplate, and we need to realize we need to get a grip on our 24 hours. That's the difference between a beggar and a billionaire. What is he doing 24 hours, and what is that guy doing 24 hours? So how do we all of a sudden get to this keter? How do we extend our day? How do we do this? Very simple. All of a sudden I could say, you know what? I'm waking up tomorrow 30 minutes earlier to meditate or to speak to God. There you go. You're all of a sudden your day's longer. You're connected to wealth. Between the first 2 hours is prime time. The person, for example, Hatzot, is when a person wakes up and meditates. It's funny, this Gabrielle Bernstein, she's a speaker in New York, and she speaks about her magic hour where the heavenly curtain is open. She doesn't realize she's doing Hatzot. What happens? Starting at 2 o'clock, that's 6 hours after Havdalah, you have 2 hours of bliss. That means anything you ask for, they give it to you. They don't check you. No audits. Imagine having 2-hour window on immigration. Who wouldn't come to this country? 2 hours, nobody's checking anything. That's the power of Hatzot. So sometimes when you're able to tap into that energy, you're able to get a lot of blessings and a tremendous boost. So I've been able to tap into that hour. But you have to break your sleep for that. Person meditates in those 2 hours. I've had people in my classes do this. You have no idea the results from it. It's literally like somebody, when you wake up in that hour, it's like somebody robbed you, but you found out what he took from you. You know what I'm saying? Somebody robbed you. And what happened? Imagine somebody robbed you, and you caught the guy. Okay, he's taking my parnas away from me. He's taking my pigama bread. He sees already what you took. So you can see things very clearly that hour. Sometimes what I do is I usually wake up around that hour, and that's how I write the classes for the next day. Because I get it from upstairs. Okay, what are we talking about today? Blah, 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 blah. That's how we have 300 classes today. It's not because I run 4 businesses, I work like everybody else. But I tap into that hour, and that hour is an hour of chesed, and that hour is the concept of Ruach HaKodesh. What is prophecy? Prophecy is prayer. What is prophecy? Prophecy is when a person is able to pray for something, and all of a sudden God will put the words into your mouth on what you need to pray for. Imagine that. All you have to, it's an open book test. Wake up, open book test. That's the power. That's the power of that. So we can connect with many, many powers. So I knew that extending my day, I take advantage of extending it as early as possible. So my day is very, very long. 9 o'clock, I already finished everything. I have the whole day to work. That's called extension of the day. Shortness of the day is stress, is connecting to a lack of breath, which is lack of contemplation. It's going to lead to lack of success, and it's going to lead to 75% of the problems that we're dealing with today, all stress-related, they're all preventable. Because you can't have mindfulness without oil in your brain. I mean, imagine telling a person in an addiction, you should be mindful. You should be mindful when his mind is racing 500 miles per hour. Be mindful. It's not going to work. First, you have to cool him off. You have to get him in the soul state. And then he's able to have contemplation. So at the end of the day, you're going to tell me, okay, well, I know a lot of rich people that they don't do this. They're doing all these things. I know tons of people. They're not religious. They're not contemplating. How come they have so much money? How come they have the kids? For example, explain to me why a person's married to somebody, they have a baby in 1 minute, and a religious lady's on IVF treatment and she can't have kids for 10 years. Explain to me that, right? So what happens is shefa, blessing, kids and life comes from Keter. It comes undifferentiated, because if it came based on a person's merits, there'd be no money today, there'd be no kids, there'd be no nothing. But the quality of your life, that means a person can have much more mazal than another person. Can't take that out. You can't compare. Some people have tremendous mazal. Everything they touch, it turns to gold. Other people, they try a lot of things. They don't have the mazal. We're able to change mazal through prayer, teshuvah, and charity. We can change mazal. But some people get a head start. So they have a lot of mazal. Now, the difference between them having, what's up to them? Their fear of God. So I know tons of people with a lot of money, and they're absolutely miserable. They're absolutely miserable. They have kids in addiction. So your quality of life is based on your fear of God. Yeah, you can have a lot of money. You can have 7 kids, but 3 of them could be in addiction. 4 of them could drive you crazy. So that money and keter comes from a very, very high place called mazla. And that comes in whether you deserve it or not. But you can lose it to other things. You can lose it to a bunch of things. And your quality of life. You could be living in a beautiful mansion, 40 years old, you can have a heart attack. Because you're always in more, you need more and more things. So the fear of God and connecting to our spiritual state is we're able to take the blessing that we get, and we're able to actually have the blessing and our quality of life. That's what we want. We want the blessing and the quality of life, not just the money with no quality of life. You know, I know girls all day long. Their husbands have a lot of money, but what happens? They're cheating on them all day long. But they're staying in there for the money. You think that's a life? Is that a life? She's got 55 Louboutins, she's got this, she's got Hermes, she's got all the bags in the world, but her husband's cheating on her every single day, and she can't do a damn thing about it. So that's not a quality of life. That's not. And you see that all the time, by the way. It's not in. So without the Torah, a person's not going to be able to cool down and handle his impulses. So that's what we have to focus on today. How is my breathing? How is your breathing? What are you doing to enhance your breath? And what's your kryptonite? What is your weeds? What's causing you not to have breath? First think about what's causing you not to breathe. Is it stress? Is it lust? Is it food? And what's causing you the opposite? That's what we really want to focus on today. If we're able to be mindful and realize that if I don't improve my breath, I'll never be out of and so I might have to get rid of some impulses. I might have to get rid of some stuff. And that's really the key. All right? That's today's class. If anybody has any questions?